Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MSP 1337. It is Tuesday, and we're here at IT Nation Secure. And wow, for this episode's topic, we thought we would call it free and open source. Is that the right way for your MSP? I think, Henry, Tim, welcome to the show. Are you on an open source laptop? Because you just vanished on me.
Yeah, no, it certainly feels that way at the moment, but no, I am not. How are you doing today?
Let's go. I'm good. I feel like every time I go to IT Nation Secure, the pre-days become pre-days. And actually, I think that's part of what I look forward to coming to these events is the opportunity to have no pressure conversations when there's really not that many people here. And, we were talking yesterday and obviously this morning about the way things were, like tools, services that we used years ago. And I think we were talking about it, Josh Hoban and I were talking about it when we were in the Uber ride from the airport that, remember when we did firewall management and we like plugged the firewall in and if the lights blinked, we're like, cool, got the internet? Yep, check. Okay, call us if it stops blinking and we'll keep sending you an invoice.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, that's it's kind of funny to think back about how the industry and at least how we practice as an MSP has matured over the years here. I know we were kind of briefly discussing. We years ago built our own PSA because at the time
Right.
that seemed like it was the right move. And I know that there's still a lot of people that do their own homebrew type of different solutions for different aspects of their business, but certainly seen kind of a shift as people kind of realize the risks that are involved in that.
And really, what business at the end of the day are you in? Like, you're going to build software, and we've seen it, right? We've seen MSPs have products evolve out of their own MSP that become, multi-million dollar deals, and great for them. But not everybody's going to be, those guys, right? Like,
Yep.
get lucky, get it sold, and then go, oh yeah, by the way, there's a lot of things that need to be patched, but we didn't have time because we were, building it quick and dirty. I was thinking to what's sort of saturating our market right now, or I shouldn't say saturating, but it's really buzz right now. Um, and that is, GRC platforms. And I was thinking back to like when I really started using GRC platforms would have been like the 2016, 2017 timeframe. So still pretty early. A lot of the players in the market, all half a dozen. No, there were more, but they really catered to the enterprise space. And at the time, I remember Aramba was probably the only one that we really felt was up to snuff, and it came with an open source edition or community edition. And so what that meant was you could download it, install it, manage it, maintain it yourself. And they had updates that were essentially once a year. So maintenance cycle or patch cycle, no matter how bad things might be, you got to wait 12 months till the next cycle, right? And it got me thinking, and as we were talking earlier, as an MSP today, doesn't it make sense to use free and open source tools when um, I would argue this is the argument that I would make. The GRC platform space is really becoming no different than your PSA or your accounting package. And I'm not sure MSPs collectively have caught up to the fact that this is in that category.
Yeah, I think there's still obviously a place for open source solutions in the industry, but not necessarily around certain solutions, especially something like GRC where you're dealing with sensitive information that's likely to be stored in it.
Right.
And security audits and encryption standards, those things matter when it comes to GRC tools, and especially when you're putting some of those artifacts into storage there. Not to say that there aren't some secure open source solutions out there
Sure.
based on not just GRC platforms, but I think the management and maintenance of those systems comes with a much higher overhead.
Right.
And MSPs today, at least in my experiences, we're already stretched pretty thin managing, 15 plus different portals. And yeah, it's one other thing to have to do and manage then. So I would agree. I know like Tom Lawrence is a big fan of open source in general. So he would probably have his own views on this, but yeah, I would agree that GRC is probably not the place for an open source
Yeah.
solution.
Ironically, I went and worked for an MSSP, and they were predominantly all Linux shop. Like we had options if we wanted to dual boot Windows, but basically we're buying into this open source ecosystem. And I remember they gave me some sort of like reimbursement up to X dollars for a new phone, and they're encouraging me to get the Android device because, well, it's open source and it's not locked down like Apple, and like cool. So I fly to Toronto and I get off the plane and my phone will not do anything. Like it won't connect to the cellular network. I can't get it to join the Wi-Fi. And I'm like, so now I know what it feels like to need a payphone and there isn't one. I ended up being able to reboot my phone. It was fine. But what was interesting is as I was starting to use the phone, the things that I uncovered more and more of was like for my phone to connect to our corporate network, I had to buy a commercial VPN product because the Android platform did not have an open source app, but oh, the Apple phone had it built into the operating system. And
Mhm.
so there's just a combination of things. So I, as you can imagine, went back to the iPhone, but like I think open source, there's nothing wrong with open source. In fact, so many commercial products rely on open source. I remember back in the day, your Barracudas and some of the others, they all relied on an open source operating system. But the key thing that was different, even pfSense, right? Like you can go and get the Netgate appliance, get support. You now have essentially a commercial product, regardless of how the operating system was built and who built it. So I think free is probably not fair. So free doesn't necessarily mean not commercial, right? Because internal usage is an MSP. I'm not worried about that. If that's like an NFR
Mhm.
license or something along those lines, great. But I think this idea of you're responsible in its entirety for the product for things like your accounting software or your professional services automation. I just think that that's too high of a risk. And what business are you actually in as an MSP?
Yeah, no, there's thinking back to our homebrewed PSA solution. A lot of the reasons that we decided to get off of that eventually was kind of overlaps with the idea of probably why we wouldn't go homebrew for a GRC platform or another security solution like that.
Sure.
I mean, yes, there's the risk and liability of the data that's being stored, but you're also able to transfer some of that risk then to a vendor
Yeah.
as opposed to having to own that internally. For us, we were looking at the ongoing support and maintenance just wasn't scalable
Sure.
as as we kind of grew and matured as an MSP.
But what happens when
And
someone leaves? That was the key developer. It's not like you had a dev team.
right,
I mean,
and
I'm
then
sorry, I speculated there. I didn't think you had a dev team.
no, no, and that's essentially like I became a bottleneck for work getting done.
Sure.
So,
That
but
feature's coming out sometime in never because I'm on vacation, and when I get back, I have all
uh-huh,
these other things to take care of. Yeah.
yep.
You,
But also the integration side of things, like
yeah.
there's just no way that I could compete on the scale that other solutions are able to as far as integrations.
And today that might be different, right? Because, we talk about APIs and some of that stuff 10, 15 years ago, and it was like, it might be REST protocol if you were lucky, but by and large, it was like, here's how we send all of the data in your database to this other place. And we only need name and email address. Like, awesome.
Uh huh.
But you have the whole database. Um, it makes me think like today, what are the, deal breakers in software? And I think you highlighted some. And so, we have a few minutes. I thought it'd be cool to kind of talk about, you know, what does my GRC need to do? I know we were talking about this yesterday with Blacksmith. There's definitely some discrepancies in the space now with what is or what makes the tool that one would argue is called a GRC, or for those, those listening, a governance, risk, and compliance platform. Um, and you go back in time, you had the Arambas and Security Studio. There was probably, 10, maybe a dozen of players, and now you hear of the Vantas and the Dratas and uh, I'm losing my mind because I can't remember all the names, but there's a lot of players in the space now. And I would argue that
Hmm.
even those that cater to the MSP, there's probably at least 20, if not more, that would say that they cater to the MSP space. Some of them identify as a GRC platform, others identify as a cybersecurity automation CISO thing, and we're like, hey, we'll never be in that space because we don't want that. And it's like, well, what's the difference between your product and that product? And so I started thinking about this last night from an MSP perspective. There's a lens that an MSP, if they're doing the trust mark, they're looking at it through one lens probably right now. And that is, how do I get my own house in alignment with the trust mark? But then there's those that have the trust mark or have gone through other frameworks, and they're using this as the platforms as a way to work with managing risk with their clients. And so they got me thinking, like, what are the feature sets that you can't live without if you're purchasing or investing in a GRC platform? And the one that stands out to me above all of the others is it needs to be easy to plug in the information that's answering the safeguard that I'm trying to put the answer against. Beyond that, the level of requirement goes down from need to want
Hmm.
to nice to have.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think to back up a little bit, your assessment of uh, there's a lack of definitions, or and this is kind of a much broader topic, but a lack of good standardized definitions in our industry around different tools, different services, and things that people provide. So in this case, what actually truly makes a GRC tool a GRC tool.
Right.
Um,
We've been doing it for MDR and XDR for how long now?
yeah, well, and
My
it's a
definition or
constant
your
battle.
definition?
Yeah, it's a constant battle of the nerds versus the marketing department, that
Sure.
because and I think that that's where a lot of that tension comes from, because you see things like the very cheap, affordable pen test that's not really a pen test, and those
But we
types of
used all the
things.
keywords.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
but to then kind of tie that into what you were talking about with the actual requirements that GRC should be doing, in my mind at least, is it's got to be that centralized data collection for all of the artifacts to support those claims. Outside of that, everything else is a, as you said, is a nice to have. Um, Ideally, though, it would be nice if it's helping to track all the tasks that need to happen, and providing some insights in reporting. I mean, some do that better than others, that's for sure.
Well, and I think that at the end of the day, you bring up a good point. I mean, I was, jumping on GRC because I think it's top of mind right now. I would imagine here at IT Nation Secure, we go into the rest of the event, we'll see probably more than one that would classify as in our mind anyway, a GRC vendor, whether they identify as one or not. But it brings up some things that you're pointing to. I think probably after being able to ease of use and putting the information in that you need to, which really doesn't limit GRC. I think PSAs and other tools are very similar. Then the next one you brought up is reporting. Like, what kind of information do I get back out? What kind of visualizations do I have of the information that's present? How do I compare it against other platforms or other tools in our tool stack? And I think that might be the area that MSPs today are most challenged with. I remember the days when Right Gauge showed up on the scene and everybody's like, woo, and it was great, right? Like you get the visualization of open close rate on tickets. We're putting them on the screens, and suddenly, there was this huge increase in sales of, 43-inch Vizio televisions all over North America and probably around the world to, just display nice and neat these bar charts and gauges that, helped us make better decisions. But that has evolved to every tool set that you use probably has some sort of visualization uh, function inside the tool. And so there's this information overload that comes back to, can I see the meaningful information at a quick look, or do I have to dig? And I think that's one of the areas where I've seen GRCs, kind of the newer ones coming into the space. They're not burdened with like all of the minutia of things that people wanted to look at from like, let me show you how this compares to 25 different frameworks. I'm not trying to do 25 frameworks. And I think that's what's kind of different right now in the MSP space is self looking at oneself. There's probably not more than one or two frameworks that your organization really needs to be truly aligned with, because you can use that information to help you satisfy requirements that come from somewhere else without
Right.
having to go and reinvent everything. I don't know. Tools are
Yeah.
tools are painful.
Well, and yeah, it would be nice to have some standardized definitions as far as what we expect out of various tools too, because there's also a lot of products that product versus feature discussion
Sure.
happening in the space of where
Just
there's
keep
that
adding
overlap.
features.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I know that we have a lot of overlap between some of the various products that we use. Um, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing one thing great either.
Or that they
Um,
even see the same things at all.
right.
And
Yeah.
is that one tool doing it not as well or effective as it should? Or is it the criteria for what defined what the tool is looking for just not the same across both tools?
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah, and what data is actually being ingested. I'm thinking specifically about GRC stuff is whether that platform actually has a risk register included in it or not, control mappings and so forth. Uh,
Yeah, there's a
and
lot that don't.
yeah,
They don't want to play in the risk register space, or they don't call it a risk register because they don't want to attach the risk to it with the tool, but they give you the ability to attach your own risk to it, which since when did I become an expert on understanding 1 through 5 for this particular safeguard? And I know the answer is this is a critical vulnerability that needs to be patched. So why not let someone else at least get me on the road to, you should probably prioritize this over, you can't print.
yeah. Well, and I know that was something we're kind of talking about too, is starting to see MSPs care more about this. And
Yeah.
it's like all things, a lot of the services and that an MSP standardizes on come from the enterprise space and kind of trickle their way down into services that we're able then to provide to the SMB market. But I think that as a industry, as we've matured, we're starting to realize that we need to be doing more than just fixing the printer. That there's a lot of risk discussions and business outcome discussions that need to happen to be a successful MSP nowadays. It's you
Right.
can't ignore these and still plan on being around in 5 years.
True. Um, yeah, I think that's probably the half dozen of one, six of the other that I think, MSPs are all dealing with is you come to a show like IT Nation Secure, or you go to any of the events that have vendor pavilions, and it's like, what's the new shiny that I should be investing in? And I think what's missing is I feel like a lot of the tools we see come on the scene now, like, who asked for these features? Because I want them now that I know that they exist, but like, who like dreamed this up in their basement or garage? Because I'm just like, there's so many of these. Like, in fact, I was at one just a couple weeks ago. You were there in London, the MSP show. Um,
Hmm.
that was there was vendors upon vendors, and they were all doing. Some were doing broad, like you said, a lot of features, a lot of overlap with other tools, and then some were like, we just do one thing, and you're like, that's expensive, and it only does one thing. Can I justify that thing being a priority inside my organization, or are there other things that I should be investing in?
Hmm.
Tech tool
No,
overload.
well, and I've had this discussion with Matt Lee before about um, whether it's the MSP or the product. It matches the maturity of the end user at the end of the day. So whatever their demand is and in their maturity level helps dictate a lot of what services are actually offered and what the product actually looks like, which I think is an interesting way of looking at it. So if you take that perspective around GRCs becoming more popular with MSPs and obviously kind of a land rush here of new vendors coming into that portion of the market,
Right.
that would imply that our clients are also becoming more mature and understanding that, hey, I should probably have a plan for this, or I need to, I should probably, care about these compliance requirements that I have.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's not changing anytime soon, right? Like, I think about the investment that we made when we were in MSP, and then I look at what MSPs have to invest in today, and it's not just the tools anymore, it's who's managing the tools. So like we were talking about at the beginning, like, yeah, you can use free and open source, but who's managing it? So like if they're offering you a free tool because it's NFR, that's one thing. But
Mm,
I'd make sure that you've got a clear understanding of the fine print, like what happens when you exceed or go outside of the parameters. Like there's a vendor out there that I think of off the top of my head at asset number 201, you now are paying per asset for all of those first 200 devices. So how does that impact your organization? Do you have the financial capital to take that on? Does it fit with your current stack? Is it going to, basically burn the house down because you don't have the budget to cover those costs?
hmm No, I'm thinking of some of those decisions that happen on the back end. I know we've started splitting apart some of our knock activities um, around our managed services so that we can have a better grasp on the management time some of these platforms take. Um, we're we're finding that some of these tools that the cost seems reasonable on a software side, and it's as sold to us in one way as far as what the actual time integration is going to be on our end. Once we're actually start tracking those things, um, there's a lot of management time that goes into some of these various tools that has to be accounted for. Um, and I would say probably if you would have talked to me 10 years ago when I was in the business, we're definitely shooting from the hip back then. And
Right.
like
It's so true.
we're just not mature enough ourselves to be having those thoughts or even having the tools necessarily to track things in the way that we need to nowadays. But there's absolutely a management cost to a lot of these things that has to be considered now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I don't want to say we've exhausted talking about tools and tools that are free. I know GRC platforms are top of mind for a lot of people right now, and I wasn't meaning to imply that one can't use an open source GRC platform. But I think to what you said earlier, it's the investment in something that you're largely responsible for managing and maintaining beyond the information that's being put into it, and the information is often quite sensitive, or at least sensitive enough you wouldn't want just anybody having access to the information that's in there. And you're seeing that in the GRC tools that are out there. Like um, I know with compliance scorecard, unless they've changed it, they don't allow you to actually upload files as evidence. You have to basically link to your evidence that you have control over. So, you're seeing that balancing act. It kind of reminds me of back in the day. Do you remember when Ignite first came on the scene? EG,
Hmm.
NY. They were like you could upload to their secure file vault, and the first thing it said when you went to go do it was like, please make sure that you're not uploading anything that is of a HIPAA related medical forms or otherwise we will not be held responsible, which we all know that that's not exactly how it works. But,
Right.
you know, be conscious of whatever tools you are using. Are they taking serious how to handle your critical data, the sensitive data? And I think that goes beyond GRC platforms. But again, those are the hot topic right now. And so, be thorough in your own investigation of the one that you do decide to use. And obviously, if you're in the Trustmark program, you have limited options. Choose from this set of tools.
But yeah, on that, I guess there's kind of the larger topic, and probably what I think is one of the biggest opportunities for MSPs right now is data classification projects
Oh my word,
with
yeah.
clients. And I still have discussions with other MSPs today that don't understand classifying their own data. So they haven't done, haven't taken care of their own house first, and so there's a lot that needs to happen there. But I think that there's a great opportunity once you do have that done to do that with all of your clients if you haven't already. So it opens a lot of discussions about risk and risk tolerance, and really helps kind of lead the road into these GRC discussions.
Agreed. And hopefully, that's what, MSPs are doing, because the reality is, and we hear this all the time, if I can't make money on it, I don't know if I can afford to do it. And we know that that's not the right way to approach it, but I understand it. And so if, that old saying of by hook or by crook, I don't necessarily care your reasons behind why you are going through this process, as long as you're doing it right.
Hmm.
So with that, this has been an episode of MSP 1337. For those of you listening, thanks and have a great week.